Today we're going to be reacting to Bricky's Every Single Warhammer 40k Faction Re-Explained Part 2. Please go support his channel, and the original video will be in the description. Thank you. Welcome to A Christian Reacts. And before we get into the video, if you like what you see, please consider a like and subscription, as that really helps the channel out. Also, I do a Warhammer 40k Lore in the Bible series, and that'll be in the short section. And I do things different. I do reactions, but I also do a little bit of biblical commentary to the lore that's on the screen, right? So I'll bring something similar from the Bible that's going on in the screen. So I just want to get that out there as well. Also, I got the channel memberships going, just $5, and you guys will be connected to my Discord, and we can start hanging out. And if you guys have any questions about the Bible, whatever, Warhammer, you can just put them in there, and it's still in a work in progress. I've had the Discord for a while, but it's still kind of bare bones, but I'm working on it. But anyways, that's out there. So let's go ahead and get this started.
This video is part 2 in a 2-part series
on every
faction re-explained. If you've not seen part 1, you were either snatched by the YouTube algorithm, or you don't let anything, not even common sense, hold you back. And
real quick, guys, I know I've been doing a lot of Bricky lately. Of course, it gets a lot of views, but I just wanted to get the Dark Tide stuff out there because that's how I got into Warhammer 40k. So, and he was the only one that I've really seen that had a in-depth view of Dark Tide. So, and of course, we got this. So, anyways.
For that, well, I wish I could be that strong. The quest to find the primarchs was expansive and treacherous, to the point where they really should write a book about it. Despite never seeing the Emperor before in their lives, the primarchs all instinctively knew who the Emperor was, whether it's his psychic connection to him or just plain old
"Are you my dad?"
intuition. The giant golden god is a bit of a giveaway. The primarchs all lived their own lives, and some lived substantially better lives than others. Rabute Gilliman of the old
to record Discord notifications to this voiceover. There are only few, don't worry. Just
into a high-functioning society, where others, like Mortarion, lived on the poisonous hellscape of Barbarous under the boot heel of his own adopted father. When the Emperor arrived, some wanted to play a little bit of catch with their dad at first, and some didn't trust the baseball bat he was carrying, and some didn't want to play at all. Eventually, one by one, the Emperor returned his sons to his side to bring them back together as one happy family. A family who
teenagers with a bunch of hormones.
who needed a good cleaning. Are you tired of boring old soap? Is your son the foulest being ever? Do your eyes sting when he comes here?
I'll let it play just a little bit.
Clean that man right back up with the power of Cheeky. That's
Cheeky.
right. The brand grass and absolute cinnamon.
Sorry.
Cheeky. Oh, yeah, so half his sons turned on him. After the Emperor.
Sorry, guys.
Such Bricky or code Bricky for 10% off your purchase and domestically support these videos. That's code Bricky at ushigi.com. Oh, yeah, so half his sons turned on him. After the Emperor was able to bring all of his sons back into the fold again, he sent them on their way with his end goal in mind, reclaiming the lost worlds of humanity. Each of his primarchs fanned out across the galaxy to accomplish this goal, but the one they were expected to report to was his favored son, and the first one found, allegedly, which was Horus. Horus was granted the title of War Master, and he certainly lived up to Big E's expectations, which were very specific and set by Big E himself to...
And of course, as you guys know on this channel, I would consider Lucifer a sort of Horus type character in the Bible. And by the way, Lucifer is not Satan. He's literally called a man. In Isaiah 14 verse 16, he's called a man, plus Halel ben Shahar, which Shahar is a Canaanite god, and I don't think Satan is the son of a Canaanite god, right? So there was this rebellion, right? Kind of like the Horus Heresy. I've said it many times on this channel, so I won't bring it up. But anyways, there's that. You can go look it up yourself.
All of his sons. However, either intentionally or not, the Emperor did not mention to his sons some of the more chaotic aspects of the galaxy. Horus himself, while in the process of reclaiming a more advanced human world, was informed of the existence of chaos gods, a factoid that Horus initially did not believe. To him, it was a bit unfathomable to think that his father would omit such significant information on the inner workings of the galaxy. However, he soon realized this was the truth, and this betrayal was unacceptable. With the astronomical weight put on his shoulders and his father immediately leaving it all in his hands, combined with the slow corruption of his mind by those closest to him, he began to change his tune. Horus began amassing a following behind his father's back with several other primarchs and began to formulate plans to usurp him from his throne on Terra. While this was occurring, Magnus the Red tried to FaceTime his dad back on Terra, and that...
So, of course, with the dichotomy that's going on, at least in the Bible, not here, in Warhammer 40k, is that God had the Word, right? And then he says that he puts the government on his shoulders, okay? Well, Satan wanted the same thing, right? So he chose his guy, in my opinion, Lucifer, right? Or in the mythologies, Saturn, Kronos, Osiris, few other names, but you guys get the gist. In my opinion, they're all the same person, right? And then you got his brother, Baal, or Hadad, and then Set, Marduk, right? All the Stormlord, the same guy, right? He rebels and takes out, let's say Zeus and Kronos. That's another one, a Baal, right? Because he's another Storm Lord, right? And that's what you see. Set with Osiris does the same thing, right? When you start realizing, researching like the mythologies and the Bible, you start realizing they're all telling the same story, just through the eyes of their god, per se, right? And their culture and whatnot. Now, of course, in my opinion, the Bible, in my opinion, is telling the truth on it. It's the only one that looks at that stuff as bad, right? That wasn't good, right? While the others say it was good, right? This Nephilim and this hybridization and stuff like that was going on in Genesis 6. But anyways, I digress.
That resulted in the shattering of the protective barrier between Terra and the demons of the warp. Due to this damage, the Emperor was forced to sit on the Golden Throne to assure that it would continue to function. Ultimately, half of the Primarchs would fall to chaos, and the remaining half would fight back viciously against their brothers. Horus eventually gained the upper hand and arrived in orbit above Terra itself, and after antagonizing his father enough, the Emperor temporarily removed himself from the throne, strategically...
Dad, you suck. Why won't you let me play PlayStation?
Putting his old friend there as a seat warmer, and went to confront Horus himself on the Vengeful Spirit, his flagship. The Emperor faced down his son, and after a heated battle and 64 novels, the Emperor managed to obliterate Horus on a subatomic level, but not before his favorite son was able to mortally wound the Emperor. As the dust settled and the traitors fled from Terra, the Emperor's body was dragged back onto the Golden Throne, where it sits permanently to assure that it continues to function. A corpse forced to constantly hold back the horrors of the warp and guide humanity with his pale light. And
thanks to 1,000 psychers being sacrificed daily.
that light is flickering. From there, the remaining members of the traitors to the Emperor fled to their respective safe havens. These are the veterans of the Long War, the spiteful, and to them, the wronged. Those who would let the galaxy burn if it means the Imperium gets caught in the flames. These are the...
Alright, of course. Might as well bring that up. Of course, you got Genesis 6, right? But I'll also bring up Enoch. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Now we're going to see in the book of Enoch, these same entities. Now, the word there for giants and stuff is Nephilim. It is actually an umbrella term that was going on, because you'll see in Joshua 4 and in the book of Enoch, they were doing all kinds of genetic manipulation, right? In Joshua 4, it says that even the humans were mixing one animal species with another, right? This is where you get your griffins, your minotaurs, your satyrs, and stuff like that, right? It's an all-encompassing word, Nephilim, right? So it's these Nephilim spirits became the demons, right? And we'll see that here, right here. And it says, and now the giants. This is Enoch chapter 15, verse 8. And now the giants who were produced from the spirits of flesh, or of spirits and flesh, shall be called evil spirits on the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. So if you don't know, it says that the watchers came down on Mount Hermon. They did this oath, right? And then they copulated with women. And you want to ask how they did that, which I'll bring it up for the hopefully they talk about the assassins and stuff like that. So I'll bring it up then. But where is it? Hold on. Because this is interesting. So this is, nope, that ain't it. This might be it here. No, it's not. Okay, here it is. Okay, this is chapter 19, 1st Enoch chapter 19. And Uriel said to me, here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, ready, and their spirits assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing unto demons. So, that's how they did it. And these Nephilim spirits are the evil spirits. And you'll see here, it says, and the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. They hate us because they ain't us. But anyways.
And what are the achievements of your fragile Imperium? It is a corpse rotting slowly from within while maggots writhe in its belly. It was built with the toil of heroes and giants, and now it is inhabited by frightened weaklings to whom the glories of those times are half-forgotten legends. I have forgotten nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of right there, to be honest.
And my wisdom has expanded far beyond mere mortal frailties. The Horus Heresy saw the collapse of the Imperium as we knew it at the time, and half of the Space Marine legions fell to the ruinous powers. Though the favored son, War Master Horus, was killed and the rebellion ended, the heretical forces retreated to the warp and remain a constant threat to this day. The twisted reminder of what the temptations of the warp may bring, the Chaos Space...
You know, I wonder how many people he's killed with those horns. Right here. Just, you know, it doesn't have a weapon and might as well use them, you know. Anyways.
Marines act as a mirror to the loyal legions, and as time progresses, their warp taint further changes them to suit the needs of their patron deity. Though marred and absolutely mangled by the ruinous powers, they are still unmistakably Space Marines in stature and shape, and according to them, they have never been more free. After the heresy, the loyal legions of Space Marines became very strict in their organization, and their separation into separate chapters with capped numbers and other formalities was done to prevent any form of heresy from happening again. The Chaos Space Marines are a bit different. Ultimately, these Marines are subject to the primary legions that fell to Chaos in the first place. The majority of these legions, the Black Legion, the Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and the Night Lords, are supporters of Chaos unto divided, either enjoying the powers of all chaos gods or sometimes shunning them altogether. But a few of them follow a very specific chaos god. Thousand Sons are followers of Tzeentch, the Death Guard follows Nurgle, Slaanesh has their claws in the Emperor's Children, and the World Eaters are avid followers of Khorne. From there, the legions themselves are separated into roaming war bands that may go under...
What is interesting, I don't know if I'll find it in time, but anyways, a lot of times you'll see like demons and stuff like that has a lot to do with like illness and disease and stuff like that. But again, not all diseases are caused by demons. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there are some aspects of it, right? Because anyways, I'll see if I can find it.
Their own unique names or may stake a claim to one of the primary legions. Most of the gear and armor of a Chaos Space Marine remains the same, but stylistically...
Hey, you could put Tony Stark's core right here. Anyways,
it changes quite a bit to reflect the intention of the Legion or their patron god. The Death Guard's armor has become rotted and full of gaping mouths and plague-filled boils. The World Eater's sharp and violent armor reflects their bloodthirst, and the chaotic noise of the Emperor's Children armor, nipple rings included, pleases Slaanesh greatly. Due to the taint of chaos, the armor itself becomes less about plating and more about a new skin for any given Chaos Space Marine. Though the Chaos Space Marines have no true fear of death or numbers diminishing, there are still major recruitment efforts for their legions. However, the conscription of these recruits is a lot more chaos-fueled and is more of a forced assimilation, and in some instances...
Okay, this is actually a pretty good overview. So this is the AI overview. So in the King James Version, KJV, in the Bible, the relationship between demons and disease is presented as a supernatural connection. The KJV portrays demons as evil spirits that can possess individuals, leading to various physical and mental ailments. Jesus is often depicted as having power over demons and the diseases they cause, casting out evil spirits and healing those afflicted. So that's kind of a good way. I'll still look for the verse. But anyways, so that's a good description of it. Now, of course, it's not saying that all diseases are caused by demons, right? There are biological diseases out there, right? I know there are Christians out there who do say that. That just isn't true. But there are some cases where it is caused by a demon, in my opinion. But anyways.
Breeding. The organ implementations and other modifications are the same, and the necessity of a gene seed remains the same, but the result is a hell of a lot different. Understanding Chaos Space Marines is a difficult exercise. If we took my original video 5 years back and looked at the Imperial Knights section, it mainly focuses on big stompy robots. Now that I understand more, I can discuss the Code Chivalric, Dark Mechanicum, Squires, and Monarchs, and bring some more context to it all. To assume Chaos Space Marines are simply the opposite side of Space Marines would be foolish, for once you understand the plight of their primarchs, it can provide a context always needed. Horus himself turned through an overwhelming weight on his shoulders and lies told by his father. But what of Angron? Angron lived as a slave gladiator for his planet's masters, who took Dark Age technology and shoved it into his brain, so experiencing any emotion other than rage was agony for him. He finally leaves.
And what's interesting, about Lucifer is it says he ruled the nations with anger. So, which is very interesting. So, but anyways, of course, I consider him a Horus, not Ingron, but anyways.
Leads a revolt for his fellow gladiators and frees himself from the confines of servitude. The Emperor finds him and says he will take him home, but Angron refuses. He will fight with his friends against the tyranny of his slave owners to the last. At the final last stand with him and his closest friends, slave gladiators, all of them outnumbered and on the verge of death, the Emperor forcefully teleports Angron to his flagship and none of his compatriots, leaving Angron to live and watch all of his friends die. You kept that mule Pharaoh, Russ kept his kin friends, the Lion kept Luther, humans, brothers, and foster fathers, saved and raised into legion ranks. But not me. Not Angron, no. Did the Emperor teleport his gold-wrapped custodians down to help me in my army? No. Did he free the warhounds and order them to battle, fight alongside me?
Sounds like a whole group of people nowadays, huh, doesn't it? A bunch of entitled people that we know of very well nowadays, doesn't it?
No. Did he save my brothers and sisters the way he spared and honored the lion's kin, the way he honored Corferon? No, no, and no. No mercy for Angron, Angron the Oathbreaker, Angron the Betrayer. Conrad Kurz lived as a lonely boy, scrounging the dregs of a hive city plagued by constant visions of an assassin sent to murder him by his own father. Lorgar was born on a world of chaos worshippers with abusive parents, and the Emperor decided the best way to reprimand him was destroy his holy city. The Emperor robbed Mortarion of vengeance and suppressed Magnus at every turn. The question isn't why the primarchs rebelled. The question is, why didn't they sooner? To them, they are not the betrayers. They are the betrayed. They were under the boot of a golden tyrant, and they finally could be free from his heel. Of course, things have changed a lot since the heresy, and the primarchs of the Chaos Space Marines that have survived the fall are a twisted variant of what they used to be. They have all, for the most part, ascended to the position of demon prince and act as a direct connection between their god and their legion. However, due to the nature of the transformation and dedication to a particular chaos god, their actions tend to be separate from their legion's actions. Fulgrim, for example, is so infatuated with being a demon prince of Slaanesh that he is at times far too focused on his own personal perfection as opposed to conquest and sitting around like Frankfurter on his throne. Meanwhile, Lorgar is being stalked by a bird, so he's
that sounds really good though, man. Nice hot dog. A chili dog, actually, with some chili fries. Anyways, I better
always
stop.
on edge. The most adamant against the temptations of the Chaos Gods, Perturabo, was even made a demon prince as a reward for being the one who did the most work on the group project. Chaos Space Marines are a fascinating faction because there is a great deal of cognitive dissonance that is represented in them. Depending on which faction you follow, your devotion to chaos is a sliding scale, and the representation in the universe is so.
I'll have to say, for me, for the Chaos Space Marines, I have to go with the Death Guard. I don't know. They just have an appeal. Like, I just like, and I really like Mortarion. So, but anyways.
Varied. Some are there to reap a high tally of kills for their patron deity, while others are there purely to destroy the Imperium who wronged them. Some are there to torture and maim, and some are there to conquest and conquer. There is no unifying glue. They fight each other as much as they fight everyone else, and their machinations are entirely up to their warband. You have all walked different paths, but together we have come to the same destination. The Emperor has failed us. The Imperium has failed us all. It has failed us by the laxity of its laws, the decadence of its culture, and in the injustices heaped upon those of us who serve the most loyally. It has failed us by never recognizing our virtues, never rewarding us for the blood we shed and bringing about its ascendancy, and never providing unity when we needed it most. It has failed us by being flawed to its core, imperfect in its pursuit of a perfect culture, and in its weakness against the encroachment of Xenos breeds that seek to twist humanity to alien ends. And it has failed us, most of all, by being founded upon lies. The Imperium is forged by a dangerous deceit and erodes us all by demanding we sacrifice.
To be honest, he's kind of right there, especially in the Warhammer 40k part of things. Maybe not so much in the 30k, but in 40k definitely. But anyways,
truth on the altar
Heresy.
of necessity. This is an empire propagated by sin that deserves to die. And here on Istvan 5, we begin the purge. From these ashes shall rise the new kingdom of mankind, an imperium of justice, faith, and enlightenment, an imperium heralded, commanded, and protected by the avatars of the gods themselves, an empire strong enough to stand through a future.
But not you. It'll be the gods, right? Not you.
Of blood and fire. Naturally, however, as I have said before, Space Marines do not make up the bulk of the fighting force in the Imperium, so it would be ludicrous for me to not mention their dark cousins. The Code Chivalry is the sign of the power of the Imperial Knights. But what about the...
Alright.
Ruinous powers claimed during the Horus Heresy extended beyond just the Space Marines and the primarchs. Mars itself was subject to a revolution that saw half of them fall to chaos as well. And some of the once loyal knight houses saw themselves swearing fealty to the dark gods. The falling of these factions allows for the war machine of chaos to continue uninterrupted and to have firepower equal to that of the Imperium itself. The Dark Mechanicum, as the name suggests, is the chaos-affiliated branch of the Mechanicus, and have a lot more free reign, much like the freedoms of the Chaos Space Marines. The seeds of the Dark Mechanicum were planted fairly early due to some of the Mechanicum not really seeing the Emperor as the Omnissiah immediately, and Horus exploited this to allow the schism to happen a bit more naturally. Unlike their Imperial brothers, the Dark Mechanicum have the ability to invent and innovate. What a concept. While also utilizing forbidden technologies such as the Silica Animus or AI. The Dark Mechanicum do have their own desires to find lost technologies and put them to use, but they're more interested in taking ancient and forbidden technology from Imperial worlds and activating them for their own purposes. Because what good is a bunch of knob and tube wiring if you don't overload it with as many extension cords as possible? However, instead of being clear-cut and...
Facts. But anyways, can't mention the Mechanicum without this. So Daniel 2:43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay. This is interesting here. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Who's the they? But anyways, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. See. Oh, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Let me do this real quick. Okay. Okay. All right. Anyways, sorry about that.
More generalized creations, the inventions of the Dark Mechanicum are inherently tied with the warp and its demons. Genetic experimentation and modification, the fusion of man and machine are exceptionally common, and no creation is more reflective of this than the demon engines. Instead of regular tanks and vehicles, the demon engines are machines bound with the presence of demons to make them living war machines. Unlike the vehicles of the Imperium, where a Mechanicus priest may be there to aid in its repair, a Warpsmith sorcerer is there to essentially repair and irritate the demon engine so that it can be a more effective killing machine. In certain factions, like the bitter and siege-loving Iron Warriors, they will lure demons with the promise of glory and easy bloodletting, only to then forcibly trap them into these demonic engines to use as weapons of war against the Imperium. Some lesser gods, like
So here goes with the demons again, right? So, and they became pregnant. I'm talking about this Genesis 6 scenario, right? And they became pregnant and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells. To some people, that's 4,000 feet, right? These would be your titans, right? You know, and what's interesting, I'll bring that up too, actually. But one of the punishments for the Watchers was to watch their kids, you know, these huge giants, fight each other. And what do you get in Greek mythology? The clash of the titans, right? Very interesting. I'll bring that up here.
Ashtor the Archifane is also a contract and arms dealer for the demonic stuff that comes out of chaos. Many demons may sign a pact with Vashtor in the soul forges of the warp, and in doing so are given the weapons of war to kill as much as they can. Should they do so, excellent, you may keep it. Should
That's kind of interesting. Right here. And it says and all together with them took on their wives, all which they chose. And they began under them to defile themselves, and they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, made them acquainted with plants. And then it also says here, hold on a second. First, Enoch. Let me bring it up.
You not, I hope you enjoy your soul working in the forges for all eternity. That's what you signed with blood and oil. In addition, much like their ties in the Loyalist realm, the Dark Mechanicum and the Chaos Knight houses are deeply intertwined. There were, of course, many Knight houses that swore.
Okay. So, this is Enoch chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates, and made them known the metals of the earth and the art of working them, bracelets, ornaments, and the use of antimony and beautifying the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones and the coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed, fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. Semyaza taught enchantments, root cuttings, Amaros, the resolving of enchantments, Baraquel, astrology, Kokabel, the constellations, and then the knowledge of Ezekiel, knowledge of the clouds, and blah, 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 blah. You get the gist. So, interesting.
Fealty and bent the knee to War Master Horus during the heresy, but a good portion of them had no choice, as they were absorbed by warp storms and corrupted into compliance. Many of these Chaos Knights reflect the very early Dark Age technology knights with more corrupted weapons. The Throne Mechanicum, which once had a noble sitting and taking control of generations of previous drivers and taming a beast, is now a saddle to a monstrosity of wrath and hatred. The nobles of the Chaos Knights fight to aggravate and bring the machine to their will while combating the corrupted minds of their fallen ancestors. Some of these nobles may do such a good job that they themselves fuse into the throne itself and become one with the knight. If a noble dies, no worries at all. Unlike the Imperial ones that require a pilot, a demon can hop into the cockpit and control it instead. The Night Worlds also see full corruption as well. Where there were once peasants, there are now cultists, and the goal of the Chaos Knights are just as chaotic as the gods they follow. Some are sent to war by the ruinous powers. Others may protect Dark Mechanicum Forge worlds, and others still may be so hyped up on the ruinous powers that they are just aimless and reckless, hoping to unravel the fabric of the universe itself. Though the aspect of nobility is still there with the Chaos Knight, but it's hardly the same as it is on the Imperial side. As opposed to a beautiful knightly stallion, the knights here are horrifying and unpredictable monstrosities, fueled in part by the agony of the memories of the ancestors trapped within. An invasion by a house of Chaos Knights is a horrifying
That would be something, wouldn't it? Oh my goodness.
thing. One might ask, how do knights enter the battlefield? Normally they can be deployed via dropships the standard way, but Imperial knights can be deployed with a drop keep. A gigantic knight keep with like towers and stuff will hurtle towards the surface like a drop pod and be slammed into the ground with an excessively thunderous crash. Then massive drawbridges slam down, banners unfurl, and huge horns play the song of their people as these lumbering robots charge out of their, again, drop keep to fight for the Imperium. So imagine what a warp-fueled version of this could look like.
If you get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
Chaos Knights have such a presence, the warp fluctuates in their tread. They bring doom, dread, and despair across.
All right. So here's the giants fighting against each other. Okay. Proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy them, the children of the watchers from amongst men. Send them one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. For the length of days they shall not have, and no request that they make thee shall be granted unto their fathers on their behalf. For they hope to live an eternal life, and each one of them will live 500 years. And the Lord said unto Michael, Go, bind Semyaza and his associates, who have united themselves with women, so have to defile themselves in their uncleanness. Okay. So there you go. Clash of the Titans.
The battlefield. Warp storms occur overhead, and psychic phenomenon cling to them. A Chaos Knight will arrive either in some warp-debased platform, or perhaps a portal itself, or climb out of a pool of blood. As the air gets heavy, the enemy feels a crippling sense of paranoia, and the sky begins to rain blood, acid, and God knows what else. The horrors of the warp have resulted in a dramatic
Gotta love that acid rain, right? That pollution.
Change in technology in the favor of their forces. Though in practice, it is a horror beyond comprehension, their baseline desires don't seem that radical on paper. They are creative builders, working to innovate and improve technology while utilizing anything they can to accomplish their STEM goals. Looking at the dark forces of chaos and the Emperor now on his golden throne, humanity is fractured. The Emperor himself is the guiding light for warp travel for humanity.
That's an understatement.
And in being that exists as a beacon for the entire species. Without him, things would get somehow worse. Therefore, he needs his protectors. Where a Thunder Warrior wasn't enough for his armies, and half of his Space Marines turned traitor, the Emperor's personal bodyguards are something else entirely. They are not the fallible Astartes, nor are they a nightmarish concoction of organs and indoctrination. They are built and gene-crafted, with science bordering on magic. They number 10,000 strong, and each of them is a hero. They are the...
Boom.
Rare is the battle where an Emperor's custodians outnumber our foes. We are ever beset, surrounded upon all sides by heresy and foulness, just as is Terra itself. Yet, like the throne world, we stand resolute, indefatigable, indomitable. Let the enemy come. Let them darken the horizon with their numbers. Still, we will prevail. Though the...
Can you imagine being a channel like Bricky size and the Discord always going off like every 5 seconds? Man, that would... It's a good thing and kind of a bad thing when you're trying to make videos. But I guess you can always turn it off. But man, how many times I've had to edit videos because of that.
Emperor sits rotting on the golden throne. His talons remain sharp. The talons of the Emperor was the name given to the most elite forces at his disposal. The left hand of his talons comes in the form of the Sisters of Silence, psychic blanks that scour the galaxy to claim souls, to fuel the Astronomicon in the form of the Great Tide. 1,000 psychers sacrificed daily to keep the Emperor of Mankind alive, dragged...
Okay. Alright. So this is the Book of Enoch, chapter 20. And these are who I would consider the Adeptus Custodes. Now, you have the cherubim, right? But there's one issue with that. They're not the top dogs. Archon or Archangel. Archon means leader, ruler. But yet, we put them all way down. They're at the top. You're going to see here, they're over stuff. Okay? Let me show you. So this is Enoch chapter 20. And these are the names of the holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels who was over the world of Tartarus, or over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy angels who was over the spirits of men. Ragiel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Those are like the stars and stuff like that out in the second heaven. Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. In Daniel, it talks about when Michael stands up, that's when all hell breaks loose. But anyways. Seraquil, I wonder where they got that from. One of the holy angels who was set over the spirits who sin in the spirit, and Gabriel. One of the holy angels who was over paradise and the serpents and cherubim. Huh. Satan is a serpent, but yet you'll see that it separates the serpent from the cherubim, like I've been saying all along, right? Seraphim literally means fiery serpent, right? Satan is a seraphim, not a cherubim, right? And these archangels, this is why Michael was able to kick Satan's butt, because he's, over, right? They're over, right here. Gabriel, an archangel, he's over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim, so he's over them. Why? I don't understand the mainstream Christian church. I really don't. I really, really don't. But anyways.
Into the black ships of the Silent Sisterhood, the right hand of the Emperor's protectorate, his golden bodyguards that serve him and only him. These are the Custodians. While the members of the Space Marines went out to take back the...
And here's something for the Sisters of Silence. Come on. So Exodus 15:20, and Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. Is that a woman prophet? Prophet means to be inspired of God, right? That's interesting. Guess God isn't misogynistic after all. Not only that, there was a woman leader in the name of Deborah, who was also a prophetess. But anyways, I digress. So for the men that say that women shouldn't preach, anyways.
Galaxy, the Legio Custodes stood back and kept a close watch over the Emperor himself. The Custodes are, in a sense, similar to Space Marines in that they are genetically modified super soldiers clad in power armor, but that is where the similarities stop. Their genetic makeup seems to be made from the Emperor himself, or at least something quite close. And the precision of their creation predates the development of the Space Marines and even the primarchs. Unlike Space Marine recruitment, where there's a process undertaken when a subject is at least somewhat grown, a Custodian's process begins at infancy. The methods in which they are made are a secret, but what is known is that at the very beginning, each Custodian was made by the Emperor himself. Regardless of the bioalchemical process,
you could say the same things with the archangels there, right? They're so the reason why angels are called sons of God, right? Like in Genesis 6, it says the sons of God, so that the daughters of men. Notice as it separates that. And in Job, they're called the sons of God, right? It's because they're direct creations from God, right? Adam would be considered a son of God, right? Because he's a direct creation of him. We are not, right? We come from Adam. God gives us the spark, right? But we're not necessarily created, from him. We're created from the DNA from our dad and mom, right? And he brings the spark, the electricity per se, right? The energy to produce the life. But we're not necessarily direct creations of him. But anyways.
The process is exceptionally long and grueling, and only a handful of selected aspirants make it to the end. Those that do are clad in the most regal and effective armor in the Imperium. Commonly, a Custodian is seen carrying a Guardian Spear,
Cheers.
an utterly yoked-up version of the staves the Praetorian Guards of the Emperor in Star Wars had. They are also clad with specific shields and blades, but the most...
you could tell, I mean, who does know the lightsaber styles and stuff like that, actually? But they didn't really know how lightsabers worked. And the sequels or whatever those abominations were called, they did not know how, lightsaber stances and all that worked. They did, I don't want to get into that. It's frustrating.
interesting thing with all of their gear is that due to the meticulous and dedicated maintenance and preservation of their armor and gear, these items are the same ones they used 10,000 years ago. The Custodians do not age biologically, so some of the veterans in the garb may be several thousand years old. And unlike the Space Marines, they fight entirely as a solo force. When a line of Custodians is holding back waves of enemies, they operate independently. There are no battle formations, there are no squad tactics. Each Custodian is the main character, trailed by serfs and servitors, tasked entirely to reload their weapons. They fight with a singular purpose, if not action. Groups of Custodians will dispatch enemy after enemy, their spears coming within inches of each other, but never close enough for a killing blow. Their strikes are intentionally defensive, allowing their opponents to attack 1 to 2 times before parrying and ending their lives. Each strike deflected is an opportunity to know their enemy more and learn from their patterns. They are truly the Emperor's bodyguards, masters of close combat, enemy knowledge, and reactions measured in milliseconds. Though the Custodians are a part of the Adeptus Terra, the members of the Guard only...
So, let me bring this up. So this is Isaiah 37, 36, and 38. Then the angel of the Lord went forth and smote the camp of the Assyrians, 145,000. So 145,000. Or it might have been 185,000. I can't remember. Okay, let's see what the AI says here. The King James Version describes the angel of the Lord striking down 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in one night. Okay, makes sense. So, just one. Just one of this angel of the Lord, whatever. Whoever it is, I tend to believe it could be Jesus, but I'm starting to kind of wane from that a little bit. So, I'm not 100% sure. It could be an archangel. But the reason why I say it is the word or whatever, because in Exodus 3, when the angel of the Lord comes down into the burning bush, just a few verses after that, it starts explaining that he is God. So, anyways, that's why I always thought that it could be Jesus, but I don't know. Not every time the angel of the Lord is talking about that specific angel of the Lord too as well. So, anyways.
Answer to their own leadership and the Emperor himself. The leader of the Custodes is known as the Captain General, and individual squads of Custodians are overseen by a shield captain. As their focus is on the Emperor, their command center is located within the Imperial Palace. The Tower of Hegemon serves as their primary base of operations, but there is a dedicated elite guard of Custodians known as the Companions that stands 300 strong by the Emperor's side. In total, the Custodes are 10,000 strong, and when a member retires, their name is added to the Hall of Name and vanish across the galaxy in a cloaked disguise to serve as eyes and ears for the Imperium. Despite their numbers and their strength, the members of the Custodes do not consider themselves to be soldiers or warriors in any way. They see themselves strictly as the guardians of the Emperor in all facets of his presence. This extends beyond the physical. Custodians believe they represent the guarding of the Emperor's ideals and philosophies too. Their gains are both physical and literal.
It's the same kind of way with the angels, right? There's actually a group called the Malik, or which are the angels or whatever, the messengers. And they carry out God's will. But I'll bring that up in the anyways.
Literary. They are the protectorates of everything the Emperor stood for, and in doing so, the Custodians are also artisans and scholars, in addition to being the Golden Guard of the Golden Throne. However, due to this nature of being protectorates, they have a very strong view when it comes to the Space Marines and the primarchs. The Emperor himself had insinuated many times that once the galaxy was brought to heel, that there would be no need for the Space Marines anymore, and they were to go the same way.
And I want to thank these guys who put the chapters down here. It kind of helps out for like me, so I can pick out stuff before without seeing it. So thank you, Bricky.
Thunder Warriors went before. for them. The Custodes were meant to be the judge, jury, and executioner of this will, and are biologically designed not only to be able to take down Space Marine with ease, but to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Primarch as well. During the Heresy, the Custodians mused on how suspiciously easy it was to kill Chaos Space Marines, as if they were trained and made for that explicit purpose. Constantine Valdor, one of the closest advisors of the Emperor, was asked if he ever disagreed with Bricky on something, and he said once, with the formation of the Primarchs.
I feel I do my best, but they don't.
Let me ask you a very fair question. What do you do successfully? Quickly.
Got him. Or her, him,
I hate that every time we're in
whatever you want to call it.
about me.
And besides the trained distrust for Space Marines, the Custodians also have evidence for their distrust. The Horus Heresy saw half of the chapters fall to chaos and turn traitor against the Emperor. In the mind of a Custodian, the fact that half of the Space Marines fell before means that the other half can fall with ease. They are fully capable of wiping out literally any force put against them, and in a sense are the final representation of the golden age of Terra. However, they are forced to stand in silent and blind service to the Emperor and to the ill of the Imperium. And they, for 10,000 years, have stood vigil over the Imperium and have watched its rise and fall with the inability to do anything about it. While they do go out and fight some battles here and there, at the end of the day, the vastness of the Imperium means that the closest advisors to the Emperor himself are powerless to make any change. But goddamn, can they kill a Space Marine? For 100 years, I stood my watch amidst the somber shadows of the Sanctum Imperialis. I was still as a statue, but always ready, always attuned to dangers unseen. Days, months, years passed by in a frenzied blur beyond those walls, yet within, little moved and nothing changed. For 100 years, I did not but wait. Yet had any threat appeared, I would have struck it down in a heartbeat. For 100 years, I stood my watch, and as it ends, I can tell you this: patience is a weapon. Of course, a threat directly to Terra itself would...
You can wait out the enemy and board them to death.
...would appear to be something foolish. It's in the deepest parts of Imperial space and is one of the most defended bastions in the galaxy. You truly have to be foolhardy or insane to think that you can take on Terra itself. However, one faction certainly got close. In the dark ages of the stars and in a river of misery, there is one faction having a crackin' old time. The galaxy sees them as savages, yet they have already figured out the questions of the universe. Their numbers are uncountable, their technology incomprehensible, and yet their violence is so very green. I am, of course, talking about the The Orks are the pinnacle of creation. For them, the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst. Who are we to judge them? We Eldar who have failed, or the humans on the road to ruin in their turn? And why? Because we saw answers to questions that an Ork wouldn't even bother to ask. We see
if the Orks weren't fighting against themselves, man, they would be, oh man, really tough. I mean, they are tough, but they'd be probably ruling most of the Imperium if they weren't fighting against each other.
A culture that is strong and despise it as crude. During the war in heaven, the old ones were doing their best to spawn.
Alright, of course, I gotta bring up Joel 1:6 when we talk about the Orks. I know you guys heard it a billion times on here. But, very interesting, because, of course, like I said, in the first Enoch, it talks about how they sinned against the birds, the bees, and all that, or not birds, bees, but the birds, the reptiles, the fish, and all that, right? Chapter 4, you got humans mixing one species with another, right? So this is what this is a product of, right? So Joel 1:5, 1:6 and 7, sorry. For a nation has come up upon my land, strong and without number, like the Orks, whose teeth are the teeth of a lion, like the Orks, and hath the cheek teeth of a great lion, like the Orks, and who had laid my vine waste, and barked my fig tree. He hath made it clean bare, and cast it away. The branches thereof are made white, like the Orks do, right? They just take out everything, right? But anyways, there you go. There's Orks in the Bible, in my opinion.
As many combatants to their cause as
And again, this is why God was so harsh on Israel, right? Because any misstep, why he didn't want them to worship the other gods is because they will start mating with them and creating offspring, right? That are demons, basically, right? That are half human, half angel, half human, half animal, whatever it is, right? And that'll wipe out Israel, which in Genesis 3:14 says that he will put enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. So basically, God was saying that the seed of the woman is going to bruise the serpent's head. So what are you going to do? You're going to try to stop that entity from being born, but also create the earth in your image, the way you want it, right? But anyways.
possible by seeding the galaxy in a specialized sense. The Eldar were made to be a precise and tactical species to fight off the Catan and the Necrons, but another prominent species was made by them as well.
Gregs.
The Krork were warriors clad in ornate armor with more dangerous weaponry. However, things changed, and these warriors changed, and the Krork are no more. They are now known as the boys, the lads, the mates, the orcs,
Dim
orcs,
boys.
orcs. An orc in 40.
Dim boys got hurt. Dim boys got hate. That's an old school song there. It's Boys in the Hood, by the way, if you don't
He
know.
looks like an orc in most other fantasy media. Hulking, warlike monstrosities with big teeth and worse attitudes. However,
Teeth like a
unlike
lion?
the more Tolkien-esque forms of these creatures, the devastating nature of the orcs is in their biology. Unlike most species in the galaxy, the orcs are actually a type of fungus. This fungus itself comes in various forms. The small goblin-like Gretchen and snotlings are a part of this fungal ecosystem as well, and also the squigs, which can be used for basically anything. But regardless of what is a part of the fungal system, all of them are born from spores that land on the ground and grow. As they travel around the galaxy, they drop spores literally everywhere, and then an orc dies, and they drop tons of fungal spores that allows for their numbers to be replenished over a period of time. Because of this, orcs are not only extremely prominent across the galaxy, but they are exceptionally resilient due to their growing cycle. Even if one orc lands on a planet, it will be nearly impossible to get rid of all of the orc presence unless the planet itself is completely destroyed. And even then, they might find a way to survive. Due to their fungal nature, orcs don't really stop growing, and the more
So this is interesting here. So the KJV says fiend, the midday fiend, but you'll see like the Wycliffe and a couple others. Right here. So of a goblin going into darkness, of a sailing. Oh, and of a midday fiend. Huh. I read that wrong. Anyways, nor the pestilence going in darkness, nor sailing of the plague at midday. Again, there's that supernatural plague stuff, right? Let's go to the KJV version of this real quick and see what it actually says.
long-lived an orc is, the bigger they get, and the more an orc fights, the bigger they get. Of course, since they're constantly getting into scraps, an orc's lifespan isn't necessarily that long, so the bigger orcs are harder to find. Though alongside this, however, they are a tribe-based species that is comprised of war bands, and the biggest and the strongest orc leads the war band known as the war boss. At the bottom end of the orc tribal system are the Gretchens and the Snotlings. These members act as the servants and slaves of the orcs, and sometimes their actual ammunition, despite being a bit smarter and more cunning than their bigger brethren. Because in orc culture, the biggest is the boss. The smallest gets picked on and thrown around. Beyond the war bands and the tribes, orcs also belong to a specific clan. Tribes constantly shatter and rebuild, but the clans do not. They are, in a sense, a psychological state of being for any given orc, and gives an orc their specific character and traits.
It doesn't say anything about
things easier, these clans are also color-coded. So that's very easy to tell what orc does what. Though there are many clans out there, 6 of them are the most prominent and well-known. The Bad Moons are essentially the merchants and have a lot of money because their currency is teeth, and they grow teeth faster than any others. The Blood Axes are the stealth units, and by stealth, it means like slightly more quiet than the others, and they have a love for LARPing as humies. Death Skulls are the scavengers, and the Goths are the close combat specialists. And on the 2 ends of the spectrum, we also have the tech-savvy Evil Sons. And
Sorry for that. That was actually absolutely terrible. I can't do an orc, unfortunately.
The more traditionalist and tribal snakebites. Another major facet of orcs is their religious beliefs. They believe in 2 gods, Gork and Mork. Gork is cunningly brutal, and Mork is brutally cunning. The difference between them, according to orcs, is that Mork hits you when you aren't looking, and Gork hits you when you are. There's a lot of confusion as to which one is which, and this results in a lot of infighting. In other species, this would be considered a sort of religious conflict, but for the orcs, it's just another excuse to fight. I have a quote here, but I don't really do a good orc voice.
Me either.
I'm going to get my co-host, so that's ridiculous, to read this one, and I'll try to lip sync it.
Oh, he's more cunning in a grot and more killing in a dread. The boys that follow me can't be beat. On Piscina, we jumped the Marine boys, and our boss poles was covered in the helmets we took from the dead-ends. We burned their port and killed their bosses and left nothing but ruins behind. I'm Warlord Gezgul Mac Uruk-Drucker, and I speak with the word of the gods. We's gonna stomp the universe flat and kill anything what fights back. We's gonna do this 'cause we're orcs, and we was made to fight and win.
It's because this fucking sounds terrible.
So I would consider Gazkak Duel, whatever. Or Gazkul. Oh my goodness. Magthraka. Anyways, I would consider him to be like a Gog, right? We have Gog in the Bible, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, which he's in the Old Testament and he's in Revelation, which is very interesting. So, and of course, Ephesians 6 says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against spiritual wickedness in high places, and all that stuff. So I would consider him to be one of those, right? But he also is probably one of these Nephilim types, or he could be an angel himself, or a fallen angel, I should say. But anyways, he has like this Waaagh behind him. When you see, every time you see him, he's got this large army, right? That can't be numbered, is of the sand of the sea, it says, right? So, interesting.
Fighting is the biggest aspect of orc culture, and is essentially their life's purpose. They are genetically hardwired to get into battles and scraps with enemies that can feel pain. The more they fight, the bigger they get. This, combined with them getting bigger over time, means that some of the biggest and baddest orcs of all time have been notably gigantic. The Beast, as he was known, was about the size of an Imperial knight. If an orc runs out of other enemies to fight, they will immediately start infighting to
teeth like a lion. If you go look up what a lion's teeth looks like, it's right there. They have very long fangs, both going down and up.
to scratch the battle itch. For example, in the Warp, a planet exists where a band of orcs are in a constant state of war and battle and have been for an improbably long amount of time, strictly because how much Khorne enjoys himself watching it. For some, being trapped in a perpetual war planet for all eternity would be a fate worse than death, but to the boys, this is heaven. In the event of a particularly big battle, a massive amount of tribes and warbands will unite under what is known as the Waaagh. The concept of a Waaagh covers a few bases. The first is the group aspect of the massive green tidal wave of orcs fighting for the same cause, the cause being the second base. But the most prominent aspect of the Waaagh is the psychic aspect of it. Remember how the old ones made the Eldar and all the Eldar are psychic? Well, the orcs are too, kinda, but just not as much. Only a little bit of it. And they often don't know how to use it and frankly don't care. But a huge gathering of orcs generates a psychic field that allows orcs to be more organized, dangerous, and dedicated to the war-based cause. However, the true extent of the psychic energy and its usage is relatively unknown, but that doesn't matter considering the outcome 90% of the time. In a similar sense, their ragtag technology and weaponry is also a mystery to most who encounter it purely because of that Waaagh energy. The technology the orcs use seem to be held together with duct tape and plastic glue, and crude doesn't even begin to describe it. Their guns seem to have an inordinate amount of ammunition and firepower, and they are seemingly able to put things together on the fly in the middle of combat. The Imperium...
For you, Grim, I will end up getting this game sooner or later. I do want to get that out there. So that's for Grim out there. He knows who he is.
Is of the mind that the orcs' weapons and machinery only work due to their innate psychic ability, but realistically, orc gear hardly works in the first place. Weapons blow up in a Bugs Bunny-esque manner all the time, and their war buggies can collapse in the middle of battle. Just because it works a handful of times does not mean it's an effective weapon, but this doesn't stop the orcs and their green tide. I
want to apologize for that. Keep showing up. I'm not pushing anything. I've moved my mouse to where it doesn't do that, and I don't know, it still does it. So, I apologize.
Understand the power of the Waaagh energy, orcs can operate purely off of belief. Now, a misconception is that orcs believe something is real and it happens. But that isn't true, because that's just one orc. However, there's never one orc. There's normally a few billion orcs together, and if they all believe something is true, the warp will tend to respond with a positive green light. Sometimes. Do the red ones go faster? Well, with enough orcs, yeah. How does an orc buggy with an engine block that's just a boulder with vroom vroom written in chalk work? Who cares? Orcs breathing on a ship with a hull breach?
The pioneers used to ride these baby for miles.
Go ahead. An orc went back in time to kill a version of himself so he could have two of his favorite weapons. It is shenanigans. Because of their actions and aesthetic, the orcs tend to be presented in a comic relief sense in a lot of media, particularly the media from their perspective. They are bumbling and loud and goofy British football hooligans, and they say silly things and act in silly ways. But to the citizens of the Imperium, the orcs are far from funny. They are violent and irrational creatures that take humans for punching bags, slaves, or ultimately dinner. They have no moral compass and are violent and brutal killers that know nothing else. They are genetically designed to be a violent species that was capable of beating back the Necrons and the Catan. And if the orcs were ever able to unify under one banner, they would be utterly unstoppable. However, due to their aggressive nature, their organizational skills are non-existent, and they tend to just beat each other up for the fun of it. All that exists in the mind of an orc is fighting, and nothing else. If they wipe out their enemies, they will inevitably wipe themselves out as well. They are a brutal Ouroboros doomed to an endless war cycle. But to an orc, why does it matter? If they fight and they win, they win. If they fight and they die, it was a good fight. Now that the Xenos armies are growing in strength and more are threatening the safety of the Imperium, they need to bring new methods in order to handle what they are currently facing. The Emperor is on the Golden Throne. Half the Space Marines are traitor, and they are beset from enemies within and without. So now the Lords on Terra must prepare for anything possible, and sometimes the impossible. For that, they take to the stars to explore and expand. They recruit assassins for priority eliminations, they train a galactic police force and a secret police to root out any and all heresy. The lesser known, yet most feared,
Who are?
I
You know, that's
carry
what they
with me
don't
an
say in
inquisitorial
Imperium.
seal. It is a small, unassuming object contained in a neat box of Pluvian obsidian. It is a modest thing, relatively plain, adorned with a single motif and a simple motto. Yet with this little object, I can sign the death warrant of an entire world and consign 1 billion souls to oblivion, where the Imperium may see its justice dealt out by the hands of its...
Alright. We won't go over all the verse, whatever. This is just what Malik means. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay, so Malik, an angel or messenger. Okay, where is it? Okay, primarily found in Aramaic sections of the Book of Daniel, a text that includes both Hebrew and Aramaic languages. In Daniel, angels are depicted as messengers of God, often delivering important revelations, or providing protection to God's people. For instance, Daniel 6:22, Daniel speaks of an angel who shut the mouths of the lions, demonstrating divine intervention and protection. The role of angels as messengers is consistent with their portrayal throughout the Bible, where they serve as intermediaries between God and humans, conveying divine will and executing God's commands. The concept of angels as messengers underscores the belief in a God who is actively involved in the world and communicates with his creation. So, there you go.
Armies and the gauntlets of its Astartes. When one needs eyes, ears, or both cut out, it looks to the agents of the Imperium. In a meta sense, these agents are a homogenized version of multiple factions from the original video 5 years ago. They comprise multiple aspects of the wide and all-encompassing armies of humanity and serve different roles. Whether it be the law enforcers of the Adeptus Arbites, the void-faring explorers of rogue traders...
Arbites. I've been saying Arbites. Okay. Makes sense. Anyways. And Darktide has, I guess, a new class coming out called the Arbites. I thought they were the Arbites, but I was wrong. So
the invisible hand
I am still a
of the
noob at this.
or the hospitality of the Emperor's Inquisition. Each has a part to play in the God Emperor's domain. Rogue traders are a great example of a somewhat undiscussed part of the Imperium, its nobility. While you may see the General Imperium as a totalitarian hellscape, because it is, this is to those under the boot of the nobles that run it. Rogue traders are a special kind of explorer, and their existence is extremely important to the function of the Imperium. A rogue trader is often an extremely special individual and is given the monumentally sized warrant of trade, allowing them to be given almost complete and utter freedom. Their task is simple: to chart the uncharted, learn the unlearned, and do whatever they can as an explorer and conquistador for those back on Terra. This information is, strictly speaking, invaluable. Whether a...
So, of course... So, son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, thus saith the Lord God, because thy heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God. I sit in the seat of God in the midst of the seas. Isn't that interesting? Sounds a lot like Atlantis, doesn't it? And we saw in the last, not the Dark Tide video, but the one before that, that the Bible does talk about Atlantis. It talks about how he sent the deep over it and took it down into the earth, right? So the city cannot be inhabited. What's interesting, Job says that the Assyrian or the destroyer lives there and it's not inhabited. So it's very interesting. I'll bring that up one of these days. But anyways. Oh, sorry. So this is the king, or wait. So, with thy wisdom, I'm sorry, prince, with thy wisdom and with thine understanding thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. By thy great wisdom and by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. Before thus saith the Lord God, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of God, behold, there I will bring strangers upon the terrible of the nations. And this is kind of what happened to Atlantis. And they shall draw their swords against thy beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. Let's go view chapter. And real quick, let's go to the king right here. Son of man, take up a lamentation against the king of Tyrus, saying to him, thou sealest up the sum, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty. So now this would be the principality, right? The top, the angel, or the fallen angel, I should say, right? Who is a cherubim. And no, this isn't Satan, right? Remember, Satan's not a cherubim. He is a seraphim, right? But anyways, this is why me and the church don't get along a lot. The mainstream church, I should say, is because there's just a lot of stuff they put out there. Because they don't know it, they just put it out there. You know what I mean? But anyways, I digress. So the anointed cherub that covereth, who have set thee, that was upon the holy mountain of God, and that's walked up and down. Anyways, I probably shouldn't have gone all the way up in that, but anyways.
A sector can be settled and colonies built, or precious rare resources exist on a floating asteroid can be mined, or a long-lost imperial world from the Age of Strife is recovered. It's all absolutely imperative. These rogue traders are faster than any other kind of imperial armada, and therefore chart the direction of the entire society. Because of this, rogue traders are given a substantial amount of freedom. They have a ship and a crew of specialists, and can do things that would see any normal person shot. They can barter deals and even recruit Xenos races. They can explore areas strictly prohibited, and they can earn a vast amount of wealth and riches in doing so. This tends to make rogue traders a very long lineage, and their heirs take up the mantle of their house. By being explorers, they become fabulously wealthy, and some can
That
become
tripped me out
quite
there for a
the
second.
assholes while doing so. But truly, much like a night pilot, a rogue trader is an exceptionally rich individual who can back it up. They are master swordsmen, explorers, merchants, settlers, diplomats, and everything in between. They chart a course and they set the grounds, which means they will need someone to defend them, and the prime choice for that can be the Adeptus Arbites. Now, the Arbites are cops, Judge Dredd-style cops, as their inspiration clearly shows.
I am the
Each
law.
planet will have their own members of local law enforcement, and most of them will settle many of the issues there and then. But when something requires a far more in-depth peacekeeping force,
I always find that to be stupid. Your team just won, and you're going to destroy the city that you're in, that just won the Super Bowl. I don't know. I will never understand that. Ever. I get you're drunk, but there's no reason to go out there and riot. Your team just won. Why are you rioting? Oh, man, that's so stupid. All you're doing is causing other people problems, other businesses problems. Now they have to fix, and they have to, you know. The city will reimburse them. But that's... People don't think of other things like that. They just think of themselves.
the Adeptus Arbites are brought in. Think local police versus the FBI. Arbitrators in the Arbites tend to focus heavily on stopping crime before it can become too much of a threat. A criminal gang or heretical uprising can be subdued quickly and efficiently by utilizing them and dealing with soon-to-be criminals, as they put it. They will tap into communications, create spy networks, do interrogations and sabotage, anything that helps the good of the Imperium and the law they seek to preserve. The Code of the Arbites is laid out entirely via the Book of Judgment, a gigantic library of pages showing every single law from every single High Lord of Terra in the history of the Imperium. Because
Dang.
the Imperium is so vast, hundreds of laws are
So
added every
to the
single
Catholic Church.
day, and the library continues to grow with more and more laws
Oh,
and
man.
judgments.
I don't
While
want-
Arbites themselves carry a small version called the
Oh,
Book
boy.
of Law on their person, this does end up creating a system where the unjustly prosecuted will never escape their prisons. If an innocent is
Oh,
wrongly
boy.
convicted, any form of legal counsel will need to go through the Book of Judgment to help get you out. Often these prisoners require hundreds of years of litigation, in which they will eventually expire before they can be deemed wrongly convicted.
That's actually pretty clever, putting those little, you know, every time a Discord thing or the Discord noise pops up, he puts that little thing on the bottom there. That's actually pretty clever. That's not actually that popping up, it's just the Discord in the background's going off. But that's pretty clever.
Innocence is irrelevant. You have been judged guilty of transgressing the Lex Imperialis. Do not compound your guilt by evading punishment, as there are greater crimes, so are there greater sentences. Of course, should something go out of the hands of the Adeptus Arbites, there is always the silent hand of the Officio Assassinorum to take their place. Naturally, the Imperium has assassins, and these assassins are sent to dispatch important figures that would not normally be.
Now, the Calidus Temple assassins are the ones that use the polymorphine that changes their shape and stuff like that. And they can take, you know, the shape of the person they're trying to assassinate and stuff like that.
Handled by simply sending waves and waves of guardsmen at it. The Assassinorum is headed by the Grand Master of the Assassinorum, who is a High Lord of Terra and perhaps the shadiest individual in the entire galaxy. At his disposal are multiple types of assassins that all specialize in various things.
Darn
Their
it.
training is extreme.
You guys didn't get to see it,
absurd.
but-
Aspirant children are
Oh.
often subjected to Hunger Games style.
I'm not
combat
pushing
with
anything.
each other on the ride over to the temple.
The
Then
heck?
you get low gravity, high pressure, traps, horrendous physical and mental strain, and everything in between. Then their minds are wiped completely, and the real fun begins. An Imperial Assassin is nothing to mess around with. They are some of the fastest moving and hardest hitting things the Imperium has at hand, and can go toe to toe with Space Marines depending on which temple they are from. Some, like the Vindicares, are master snipers who lie in wait for weeks, days, or even months just to get the perfect headshot from 5 kilometers away and disappear. The Calidus Temple are masters of shape-shifting and take a drug that allows them to transmute their
Polymorphine.
body into whatever they see fit. A confidant of a target may be
All right, and you saw that, you know, it says that Satan is able to transform himself into an angel of light, right? Well, we just saw in the book of Enoch that other angels, right, that were able to take many different forms to procreate with women and stuff like that, right? So the fallen ones can transform, including Satan, probably many of them. That's why you see a lot of these gods, they look like humans one moment, the next moment, you know, Ra looks like a bird. Next minute he looks like a human bird and stuff like that, right? So
killed, and they will take their place before killing their target outright. Or they could shift into a member of a chaos warband with symbols and flesh and all that to earn the trust of a cult leader before slitting their throat. The Caluxus assassin is a psychic blank, a soulless mutation, making them appear as uneasy to normal humans and downright disgusting to psychers. When a powerful psycher is causing issues, this is who you send. Their specialized helmet enhances their already latent powers and will allow them to all but drain the souls from those they touch and their very body. It is an extreme weapon used when a direct form of pressure must be applied to an otherwise untouchable psyker. Now, if you needed direct pressure in a more literal way, the Eversor is for you. A drugged up comatose psychopath that is directly dropped on enemy lines and allowed to wreak havoc, killing anything and everything it sees in a blaze of movement and blood before it inevitably dies and causes a plasma explosion on its demise. There
Dang.
are other temples as well. The Vanus Temple, acting as sort of like a cyber hacker. The Venomim Temple, specializing in poisons. But all in all, assassins move with their skin-tight body gloves with a speed unmatched and force unexpected. One
And
of the
Tiggle
best
Bitties.
assassin novels puts a Vindicare, Calidus, and Vanus to infiltrate a night world, kill the High Monarch of the Knights, who is permanently stuck in his giant robot knight, install a new ruler in his stead, and make sure nobody knows the Imperium did it. Their missions are insanity, and their tasks impossible, and they do it anyway. Thus is the power the Assassinorum wields. We do not determine the guilty, we do not decide the punishment. We are merely the cold instrument of the Emperor's vengeance. There is no form of death unknown to us. There is no form of terror beyond our means. There is no enemy outside our reach. We are the blade that hovers over the throat of the traitor. We are the bullet that awaits the heretic's skull. We are the poison in the throat of the alien. However, despite the prowess of the traitors, the police, and the assassins, there is one that stands above all. As the Imperium settled into its post-Emperor world, they needed a force to root out corruption wherever.
I am the law. Oh man, I need to stop doing voiceovers here. I can do some, but some I can't.
It could be found. But they needed specialized individuals who could do so. Men and women who would serve as detective and executioner. This new secret police would have unlimited authority, and they would be known as the Inquisition. Inquisitors of the Inquisition are one of the most feared individuals in all of the galaxy for the common members of humanity. Trained in the most difficult of conditions and mental hardening, they have long closed their minds to the compassions of those they deem guilty. Inquisitors are, for the most part, detectives, but they are detectives whose authority is unmatched and actions justified by the state itself, similar to the KGB, the Gestapo, the Stasi, the OVRA, but...
Okay, so this is from 2nd Esdras, which was in the 1611 King James Bible, but not necessarily canon, right? Hold on. And will begin to make inquisition of them. What they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when affliction of Sion shall be fulfilled, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, when I shall show these tokens, the book shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together. So that would be considered like the Black Library there, right? But anyways, interesting. There's also another thing too, I think. And when he made, or Psalms 9:12, I think, let me see. Yeah, 9:12. When he make inquisition for blood, he remembereth them. He forgetteth not the cry of the humble. So, there you go.
Unlike those organizations, the Inquisition has far more authority and is one of the only types of individuals who can commit exterminatus, the term used for the utter and total destruction of a planet that is no longer deemed usable by the Imperium. While it is a very exciting word and a commonly notable thing done in Warhammer, exterminatus is not actually used particularly often. It's a last resort entirely meant to stop the enemy from gaining a major foothold or spread even more corruption. Even with 1 million worlds, the wholesale slaughter of an entire planet is still a massive blow to the Imperium. Inquisitors range quite a bit, not just in how they operate, but also in their personalities. They are often main characters for a large amount of books, as detective noir is a great genre, and they can be the most stone-cold killer or a pragmatic and sympathetic individual depending on who they are. Radical Inquisitors may utilize methods unlike most of the Imperium, such as alien tech or even demon.
So, of course, on the Day of Destruction and all that is what it says. Well, at least. Sorry. Anyways. And except those days should be shortened, there shall be no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then, if any man shall say unto the low anyways, that's not it. But, so when God destroys that, right, he's taken out, or here, you know what, let me bring up this. Where is it? Anyways, I'll find it.
Hosts where Puritans stick close to the methods of the religious state and shun any deviations. They also specialize in various aspects, as the Inquisition has orders, or ordos, such as Xenos for aliens, Malleus for demons, and Hereticus for, you guessed it. Truly, if you are a normal citizen of the Imperium, a person flashing an inquisitorial rosette in front of you may be one of the most terrifying moments of your entire life.
Yeah.
It is the same as an FBI badge or a KGB member, except now you're in Warhammer. So, their authority and tools are infinite.
So right here. Right here. This is Revelation 29. And they went... Hold on. Okay, anyways. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and encompassed the camp of the saints. So this is the Waaagh, right? Encompassed the camp of the saints about the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. So, if they didn't, no flesh, or if you didn't do that, no flesh would survive, right? But anyways, so somewhat of an exterminatus. But that's also the day of the Lord as well. Let me bring that up.
Agents of the Imperium are vast and offer a ton of different concepts to the world of Warhammer. And they continue to expand as the Emperor's descent into the Golden Throne has lasting effects on humanity. As time progressed, a few people seeing the Emperor as a deity made their voices louder, and over a few thousand years, worship of the Emperor was not only considered expected, but state mandated. This church will be known as the Ecclesiarchy.
Alright, so this is kind of for the people who think the day of the Lord is a good thing. This doesn't sound like it, right? So, let me find it. Sorry about that. So here's Amos 5:18. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord, Christians. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Huh. Let's go to Zephaniah. The great day, or this Zephaniah 1:14. The great day of the Lord is near, it is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly. The day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities, against the high towers. We have a bunch of those, don't we? And I will bring distress upon men, and they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung, neither their silver nor their gold. Doesn't sound like a good day, like the mainstream Christian church wants to make you believe it is. I won't get into that, but yeah.
And there were many who would look to the cardinal position and make desperate grabs at their power, leaving horrid effects on the populace. The age of apostasy was a time of reformation in the Imperium that saw its eventual change into an overtly religious empire. During this time, an all-female warrior cult to the Emperor called the Daughters of the Emperor were a bit more isolated from the wider Imperium. However, as the Ecclesiarchy began to take root, one Gouge Van Dyer became the High Lord of the Administratum and noticed these warriors and felt they could be useful to him. Gouge himself told these warriors that he was the voice of the Emperor himself and demanded they fire upon him to prove it. Having a little hidden force field that this warrior cult had never seen before, the bullet bounced off of him and showing him to be unharmed, truly blessed by the Emperor. This cult became known as the Brides of the Emperor and acted as his personal bodyguards and aides. However, Gouge Van Dyer was a tyrant, and his horrendous reign spelled ruination for the wider Imperium, which made the Adeptus Custodes take notice.
That's them cocaine nails right there.
Despite an outright coup and revolt against him, the deadlock was getting steep as the brides of the Emperor's fierce combat skills kept him safe. One custodian made contact with the leader of the brides and brought her into the throne room of the Emperor himself. Nobody knows what transpired in that room, save for Alicia Dominica, the custodian, and the Emperor himself. However, she left the room with her hair bleached pure white from the interaction, marched her battle brides directly to Vandire himself and said, "You have committed the ultimate heresy. Not only have you turned your back on the Emperor and stepped from his light, you have profaned his name and almost destroyed everything he has striven to build. You have perverted and twisted the path he has laid for mankind to tread. As your decrees have stated, there can be no mercy for such a crime, no pity for such a criminal. I renounce your lordship. You walk in the darkness and cannot be allowed to live. Your sentence has been long overdue, and it is now time for you to die." Despite not having any time to die, Doge Vandire found some time to do so. With his head lopped clean from his body, the brides of the Emperor were no more, and the Ecclesiarchy signed a document to stop Vandire's reign from happening again. They would no longer be allowed to have men under arms. Men.
So, you know, when Moses was talking with God, it said they had to put a veil over him because his face was shining, right? Well, scientists are finding out now that we emit a low light, which is very interesting. Let me see if I can find that study or whatever. But anyways, I just find it interesting. Well, I should probably end it there. So let me see if I can find that real quick. So sciencefocus.com, yeah. Newsweek. Humans give off a light that is extinguished in death, study reveals. You have an invisible light that vanishes when you die, Vice. Living beings emit a faint light that extinguishes upon death, according to the new study. So there you go. And when you come in contact with God, it's right? And that's why they had to put a veil over Moses' face. Almost like the Bible knew something. But anyways, I digress. We're going to end it there. I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Part 2 will be out. I'm probably going to do a Astartes 2 trailer first, and then I'll release the second version of this, or the second part of this video. But anyways, thank you guys. Thank you to those who liked the video, and if you disliked the video, thank you for at least giving me a chance. And thank you to everybody who's supported my channel. Like I said, we got the memberships going, just $5, $4.99. I'll probably think of some more perks for it, you know, some extras that aren't necessarily listed there. And I do got the badges up, so if you subscribe for 1, 2, 3 months, whatever, there's badges for that. One, it's just got the purity seals, you know, 1 month is 1 purity seal, 2 is 2 purity seals, or 3, I think it is, maybe 3. And then, of course, 6 months has like 1, you know, but anyways. So if you guys want to check that out, you can. Thank you guys, and you guys have a wonderful day.